Hey everyone, thanks for coming. We have a great first panel with a lot of people who represent different areas within television and video. And as you've probably read, we're looking at the convergence really, or we're going to discuss the convergence of mobile and television. Mobile has been growing so quickly and has been causing all kinds of disruption in the television world and a lot of opportunities too. Whole new distribution platform, the explosion of content, multiple screens so consumers can find content, video content anywhere and everywhere. And then on the research side, there's a ton of data that's available now through mobile devices that will make, I think, addressable advertising much more interesting and certainly programmatic when you get into the data side. But let's get the panelists up here and we can start the discussion. To start off, why don't you guys introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about the companies that you work for or what you do. Scott, do you want to start it on your end?
Sure, am I on? Yeah, maybe. I'm loud. I'm Scott Rosenberg, I lead the ad strategy at Roku. So my team, we do three things. One is we help Roku apps, what we call channels, acquire audience. So we run a promotional effort to get people to download and install and use an app on Roku. Another thing we do is we help power ad-supported apps on our platform, help them to better monetize their audience. And then we also run a direct sales team that sells our audience to brands directly.
Thanks, John.
So I'm John Anselmo. I'm the head of digital investment and strategy at Mediavest here in New York. We try and do really cool things in digital for our clients. That's the simplest form.
My name is Seth Walters. I lead interactive and connected TV for Modi Media. Modi Media is an agency within Group M that specializes in advanced TV. We work across all the different Group M holding companies, Mediacom, Mindshare, Maxis, Medivision, and MEC, helping those clients to identify the appropriate partners and data sets to execute data-driven and interactive campaigns across addressable and connected TV platforms.
I'm Bob Ivins. I'm responsible for the data strategy at a company called Rovi. It's one of these companies that nobody knows, but everybody probably uses. From a consumer's perspective, we sit in the set top, and basically anytime you use the remote control, you're either using our IP, our technology, or our metadata to find programs you want to watch.
I'm Jason Kanefsky. I work at Havas Media. I'm the Director of Strategic Investments. I have responsibility for all the traditional investments from national television down to out-of-home. Havas Media is a full-service media agency, from soups and nuts, from digital to traditional, linking consumers to brands.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So Jason, why don't you kick it off here? We're going to have a number of questions, but everyone can jump in after the initial person answers. And the big question really is the upfront and the health of linear television. There's a lot of talk about television being dead. I mean, hardly, but Accenture just released a study that shows that conventional TV viewing is down about 11%. Do advertisers want massive improvements in linear television, and what's the state? Are they moving money from linear to digital to over the top?
So I think, first off, I think advertisers are realistic. We're never going to see massive improvements in linear television. That's something that's just not likely to happen. Even you may find a hit like an Empire come through the door, but the reality is ratings are not going up. That's not something that we should expect. What advertisers expect is a video strategy, which includes everything you just mentioned. It includes linear TV, it includes FEP, it includes over the top, and the role of the agency right now is to stitch together all these pieces of information and put them together into a cohesive investment plan. And you asked the question about the upfront. Where's the upfront going? The upfront's not going away, but it's not something that clients are actually spending that much time, stressing over. It's not. They don't wake up in the morning and say, "Oh my God, I got to do an upfront." An upfront is a tactic to buy media, and with demand relatively curtailed, and supply is an issue, but there's so many options that are available to clients. They're not forced into this rapid, investment strategy that, generally speaking, in a soft market as we go forward, doesn't have the flexibility that they really want.
Is that due to the fragmentation, that there's so much inventory out there that you don't have to buy it necessarily during the upfront unless you want a tentpole event or some sort of special?
I don't think it's fragmentation. I think part is that clients are maturing in their thinking. Now they're being influenced by digital innovation and the flexibility of digital. And when CMO strategies change so fast, and the idea of being connected to a spot, in April of 2016, because of a decision that was made in May of 2015, is becoming less and less interesting to them. So they will buy television. They look forward to buying television. They would like to buy television, I think, under their own set of demands.
Got it. How about programmatic television? I mean, it seems like programmatic is the buzzword this year. How real is it? I mean, is there scale there? Are advertisers requesting it? Do they want to buy programmatically? And with linear television, can it really happen in our lifetime?
So, I'm 48, so I hope to live long enough to see it. My life insurance policy gets paid off in a couple of years, so we'll find out. I think the biggest hurdle that we face as an industry is actually defining what programmatic TV is. And you go to a conference like this. I was at the 4As, and there was a panel on run by Silent Media about programmatic, and there were some of the smartest people in the industry, and they could not define it. And I think we're using a soft definition right now what programmatic TV is. I don't think if you don't have real-time bidding, real-time bidding through modeling, through computers, through algorithms, you don't have the true definition of programmatic. Amen. I think we have things that are close, but I think there's a long way to go, and quite frankly, you also need dynamic insertion to make it work, and that doesn't exist yet really either.
Anyone else want to comment on programmatic?
Yeah, I hear a lot of folks calling I/O automation programmatic, and I just think it's an abuse of the term. I mean, programmatic's a tough word to start with, but like to assert that, sort of linear schedule optimization is programmatic is a stretch. I think it has to have the principles that Jason's talking about. It has to be dynamic. It has to be targeted. I think it has to support buy-side decisioning.
I was going to say, the only part I would disagree with is the bidded part. That's kind of one of the issues I have with just people's definition. We could probably have a whole panel on the definitions of programmatic
it
here.
could be reserved.
But yeah, exactly. I think the program is machine-to-machine buying to be able to get to the granularity of understanding the person as close to that individual as you can. So it really is data-driven marketing. It's partially about the actual delivery. And right now in linear, the big, a lot of the issues are archaic systems. A lot of it are walled gardens of data, because I truly believe that the data does exist to be able to do it. And reality is a lot of the technology exists to do it, but there's a lot of holding on to old ways of doing things for a multitude of, I'd say, personal and business reasons. But the other part of it is, I think one of the most powerful things of programmatic too is starting to own your data. So starting to understand what you're doing, how it's affecting what you're doing, closing the loop on attribution to sales, understanding how you're really driving business goals, and continue to learn based on what really matters to you, not based on industry benchmarks. And I think that whether it's reserved, whether it's bidded, whether it's however it is, it's really about making data-driven decisions that feed back into a data engine that continues to evolve and give you competitive advantage.
I don't know, this is live, but I think that if networks and cable companies, whomever, got used to the idea of programmatic and computers making decisions, they'll make more money, because clients will bid more on inventory that will drive their business. The idea, once you stop chasing a CPM and you start chasing business results, the cost is less relevant than what I paid last year to what is the impact of my business tomorrow. And it's a big leap for a lot of salespeople or a lot of organizations to say, we're going to change the way we do business. And I think to your point you made before, there are business reasons and there are social reasons even. But at the end of the day, it's going to happen. There's no question about it.
I come from a biased perspective because our agency really focuses on household level addressability. And the way that we sort of recognize the monetization side of things from the sell side is that they are making a premium today by aggregating audiences and selling them individually, as down to the household level to advertisers that are looking to leverage first and third party data to reach those homes. They're just not doing it in an automated fashion. It all comes down to speed and our ability to plan it a little bit faster and get into market. I think that's what advertisers are most interested about from a programmatic standpoint, because we are taking the same sort of data sets today and buying against those households. We're just doing it really slowly. And that just doesn't work in today's marketplace.
It's still manual today.
It's very manual.
That's
Yeah,
the
it's on,
issue.
yeah.
I think that if you say the opposite of manual is programmatic, then I think you can get it. I mean,
Yeah.
the data is increasingly available, but the technology hasn't been connected or stitched together to make it work seamlessly from start to finish. And I think the other issue, I do think there's a social issue. The privacy issue will bubble up at some point. But with $75 billion at stake, I mean, that makes a lot of people nervous. And you're not going to want to risk that until you have a firm grasp on the next branch.
As any change like this, there's going to be winners and losers. I think all the individual players in the industry as a whole are trying to figure out, am I going to be a winner or am I going to be a loser? Because it's going to be two separate sides, and there's going to be new players that come into the market as well that never played before. I think a lot of that fear is actually keeping a lot of people from making that final leap.
Add to that is if I were buyer or seller of TV advertising, I would we talked about this before we started. You look at online advertising spending continues to grow at fast rate. They're looking for new opportunities, and they're looking at TV. So, and if I'm looking at TV, I'm like, holy crap, look what happened to print. I don't want that to happen to me. And this, it needs to be data driven. So I think that's what's going to be the motivation to try to make this thing happen.
Got it. No, that's great. Let's move on to another question here, the growth of connected TV capabilities over the top. Scott, this is probably a good one for you. How quickly is content viewing or over-the-top content viewing increasing, and what are the benefits for consumers and advertisers and even content providers?
The space is growing explosively. I mean, just speaking about Roku specifically, we've shipped over 10 million devices in the US market. The average Roku device does 14 hours of streaming per week. So a very substantial part of viewing in our households now flows through the Roku device. We've got well over 2,000 channels on the platform. I think in terms of its impact on the ad business, which is really my focus, it sort of backs up from the conversation we were having about programmatic. I mean, the way in which people allocate their time is changing fundamentally, and the user experience that they expect when they sit down with a device like ours is profoundly different, right? Even if you tune to a linear IP streamed experience, it's very much an on-demand, personalized set of assumptions that the user approaches the TV with. And I mean, setting aside that the ad loads today and ad strategies of OTT services tend to be different than linear services. The physics underneath how advertising are inserted in a platform like ours are just completely different. I mean, we're basically an all IP stack, internet ad tech enabled platform. Most commercial ad servers, DSPs, SSPs, trading desks are already active on our platform, whether they know it or not. And so you take a Roku device, which is powering a 50-inch television in the living room. 80% of Rokus are in the living room. And you go into a commercial break, and that commercial break is dynamic, and it's inserted, and it can have all the power of real-time decisioning. Multiple first and third-party ad servers in the mix. And to Jason's point, the way in which that ad gets decisioned and the logic you can apply and the metrics and the matchbacks that you can do following the insertion are very different. And that's really what I and my team are focused on, is sort of building to the ad capabilities that need to be there for that next generation TV platform.
Are you selling by audience as opposed to content bundling?
Publishers on our platform, take a Hulu or a History Channel or an ESPN. Today, predominantly, as their OTT audience is growing, they're bundling their Roku inventory with their other platforms. So they're selling the way they sell today, increasingly on a cross-platform basis. There is a lot of interest in addressable, targeted ad insertion. And that's certainly a capability we're building towards. And some of that targeting makes sense today. Some of it has enough scale behind it. Some of it, you get too nuanced in your. We're very proud of our 10 million unit universe, but it's 10 million. It's not 115. So some of the RFPs we get are a little too targeted. But we have very rich first and third party data at our disposal. So there's nothing that limits our ability to achieve that sophistication. It's just a scale question.
What are the cable operators and the satellite companies doing in response to over the top? They obviously are threatened by this.
Yeah.
Are they actively competing in the same space as you are now? It's the other side of the business, and one that I left so I could work on platforms like Roku, so we could have the physics that we need to do advertising the way we need to do it. I think they are innovating. They're being forced to. So you take a team like the Sling team at Dish, and I think they're certainly thinking about, in the context of a virtual pay TV service, what's the ad tech that needs to be there. So I think there is good thinking happening in the business. I do think the MVPD space tends to sort of approach ad tech from the perspective of, I'll build it for myself, I'll use it myself, and 5-10 years later, after I've figured it out and made some money off it, then I'll think about empowering and franchising the networks through which most ad dollars flow. And I think really for this to work, you got to think about putting the tech into play for everybody who's got a stake in the business, and that's a big focus of ours. Like, not just how can my team sell better, but how do we help ESPN sell better when they go over the top. Anyone else have comments on over-the-top technologies or what's happening in the marketplace?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting from an operator standpoint. I think there was a consumer sentiment index comparing, the top 9 cable companies to that of Netflix, and they were, double digits lower. So, the beauty of platforms like Roku and other over-the-top devices is that they really are about turning over control to the consumer, and that's, why, part of my job is basically meeting with clients and selling them on the benefits of the space and helping to educate them about how to approach platforms like Roku and thinking about them as a complement to what they're doing in national television. It's just linear television, and it's just really a very simple sort of sale today because it's, thankfully because of Netflix and all the original programming that's streaming, and every other day there's another report that comes out that speaks to time spent and the shifting sort of paradigm of television moving towards over-the-top devices, particularly for younger audiences. And it's a more engaged video viewer. There's no skippable ads. It's 100% completion unless no one's skipping out, unless someone X's out. 100% viewability. A lot of the challenges that are faced in the digital space don't exist here. And then you have the benefit of it being in the living room in front of the television, in an on-demand environment. So it's a pretty sort of compelling storyline. It's just a question of where we need to have consistent and measurement across these devices, and Nielsen obviously is working towards that with their digital audience ratings or OCR, whatever it might be, or from an addressable standpoint, being able to say that this OTT device is this specific individual household, the same household that we'd be reaching through buying addressable through Dish, DirecTV, Cablevision, and Comcast. It's a pretty easy story for advertiser, and then being able to show the impact of overlap between the linear TV viewing and the OTT viewing, when that is possible, is a really sort of powerful tool for the planning and buying teams.
I think there's going to be one unintended consequence of OTT and content skipping, however you want to describe it. Eventually, we are going to have less content available to us. As everybody skinnies up their bundle, however you want to describe it, MSO fees that are normally paid to networks for some of their channels will diminish.
Less high quality content.
Yes, there'll be, other thing that I think there's an unintended consequence, and I think it's really for the younger generation to worry about, is that the way they consume TV, linear TV, by either by pirating it in some cases, or by DVRing it and watching it post C3, however you want to describe it, they're going to lose out on content because if the networks can't monetize it, they're going to build a business, for programming 45 plus. And I think we see that every day. If you look at the programs that are coming out that are successful, that the networks are renewing, they're renewing the programs that they can make money on. Make money on today from ad sales, and then make money from it today in syndication or selling their content someplace else. And if you look at the average age of a network television viewer, for good or for bad, it's 50 plus, right? That's the average age, and the median age is probably even higher. But those are the shows that the networks know will do a rating, and they know those are shows that they can make money on. And the more we pull away from advertising supported and we go to skinny bundles, something's got to give. Something's going to give and something's going to disappear. And whether a Bravo disappears one day because they've lost 30% of their audience in a year, that may happen. And is that a terrible thing? Probably not. But we just should. It's something that it's an unintended consequence, but it's most likely to happen.
That's also assuming that we're transacting on the same metrics that we've always been transacting on, right? So that's part of the thing about talking about getting a rating, is based on Nielsen ratings that we've been tied to for who knows how long. People know how long. I just personally don't know how long we've been tied to them.
Right.
But so really, who knows how long? But again, go back to this whole idea of data ecosystems and whatnot. We're going to start transacting on real delivering against real business goals, right? So it's not going to necessarily be tied to getting a rating that we've learned how to this will get this rating or that will get that rating. But we're going to start making decisions on what it's actually going to do for my business. And in that situation, you might start to see that clients are actually willing to pay a lot more to find that person and that content that's actually driving ROI. When people are making big purchases, small purchases, to have the absolute right person is going to, I believe, is going to keep costs where they are. And in instances, it can even drive them up as long as they're seeing the ROI on their dollars.
My point, I don't disagree with that. My point is that as we allow viewers to escape, right, fundamentally, that's not good for advertisers. Fundamentally, we can talk about, the idea of one-to-one. It's becoming one-to-one by default. And, DVRs aren't going away, FEPs aren't going away, and pirating isn't going away. And what you're talking about with Roku and addressable, we are diminishing the absolute number of people that we can reach, regardless. No matter, technology is allowing fewer people to be exposed to ads. Period.
But do they care that they're losing out on the Empires and Breaking Bads of the world and just replacing them with PewDiePie and other YouTube's short form videos? I don't think they care. I think, and then as advertisers, our job is to sort of aggregate those audiences, and on the technology side, it's about personalizing, the delivery of that content to that individual.
100% agree. Right. So I'm saying the unintended consequence is that some of the shows that they watched in network television will disappear.
I don't think we've done the math yet, to be honest. I think that's the issue. We don't know. I think how is the math going to work out in terms of, a inventory, CPM, and sell-through rate is undetermined at this point. Total ad spend is a function of three things: inventory to sell, CPMs that you sold it at, and the sell-through rate. And I think that math needs...
One thing I changed the programmatic world, I agree with those, but interesting thing is, it's also, we're moving to an audience world, right? So some of it's not necessarily even tied to reaching them in that show, right? So identifying someone that's high value because of something they consumed or because of a multitude of different things they consume, both from a linear side or called a sight, sound, and motion, long form, plus other content, plus everything else. When you start to, once you're able to start to attribute the value of any of those individual interactions, it might not even be about selling the inventory in the show, but being able to identify that person somewhere else and hitting them in a different form. I mean, you could have, entire websites, entire networks, everything that might not run a single ad in them. If they can get such a high quality audience that advertisers can attribute that brands can attribute their success on to find that person and make the money not selling a thing within their networks. I'm not saying it will, but it's a possibility.
I hate to cut everyone off, but we've got to move on to the other panel, and I'm afraid we're going to have to solve all these problems at the bar. So, but
We'll
thank
go
you.
back there and continue this.
Thank you very much, panelists. Everyone, give them a big applause.